I feel like it's been so long since I last filmed, but it's actually only been a couple of weeks. But anyway, I'm back and I'm filming. I'm done with finals and thesis for the term, though I'm not done with thesis, of course not. And I'm done cleaning, well, most of my room, because as soon as finals were done, that's all I felt like doing. And now I'm back to filming, so hi everyone, it's Clarice. This is Clarice Reads, and today I'm going to talk to you about my goal to read books from NPR's top 100 science fiction and fantasy books. If you didn't already know, I'm doing this thing where I'm uploading videos for every single one of the reading goals I set for myself at the start of the year. So I'll leave links to all of the videos that are already out in the description in case you're interested in seeing that, as well as the link to my first video where I talked about my reading goals for the year. So today I'm going to talk about my reading goal to read at least one science fiction or fantasy book from NPR's top 100 list every single month. They've modified this to just mean reading an average of one book every month. So that would make it 12 books total for the whole year. And even though I modified it, I still didn't really accomplish it, at least according to that numerical standard, and I'll get to that later. But first, I'll talk about the actual books that I managed to read for this goal. The Fellowship of the Ring, the first part of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Old Man's War by John Scalzi. Though it is to be noted, I think only this first book in the series is technically on the NPR list, though I have also read the second and third books in this series this year, so I'm not sure if those count. The Absolute Sandman Volume 3 and The Absolute Sandman Volume 4, both by Neil Gaiman. Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, the first book in the Wicked Year series by Gregory Maguire. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the first book in this series by Douglas Adams. So that makes for a total of 9 books, if you allow me to include the second and third books in the Old Man's War series. Either way, it didn't reach 12, so I technically did not accomplish this goal. But now I'm just going to go a bit into why that is. First, I'm going to go into my actual intentions in making this one of my reading goals this year. I wanted to read more science fiction and fantasy, since science fiction and fantasy are what I would consider to be my favorite book genres ever. And there were a lot of books that people say that you have to read that I hadn't read. A lot of books that are being referenced a lot even that I hadn't read. And so I really wanted to be able to read those books that everyone seems to know about, everyone seems to have read, the books that are considered basically classics in science fiction and fantasy. Though those were my original intentions, at one point in this year, I decided that this was a goal that I did not want to prioritize at all. And that's because I realized that this goal actually ended up conflicting with some of the other reading goals I set for myself this year, as well as some of the things that I just consider priorities in reading in general. For example, one of my goals this year is to read the world, and at one point in this year I was really focused on that. And unfortunately, most of the books on this list were written by American or British authors, which is exactly the type of thing that I was trying to avoid or to prioritize less because of that other goal that I had. And another thing that I generally find important, even though I didn't set it as a reading goal this year, is to read diversely in general. And from a quick count, I could have counted it wrong, I just did it really quickly. I think 14 out of 100 of the books were written by women. And it's also very likely that all of these authors are white. Again, I didn't like check every single one and look for the race of every single author, but just looking through it quickly and trying to see the authors that I knew and trying to Google some of them. As far as I can tell, all of them are white. I may be wrong. Point is, the list itself isn't very diverse, and I don't know, it didn't feel good for me to try to prioritize reading those and then also try to prioritize reading diversely and reading the world, because they did contradict. They really did. And ultimately, I find these other goals more important to me as a reader than the goal to read influential science fiction and fantasy. So I really just stopped prioritizing this goal at one point. That being said, even when I decided to not prioritize this goal, there were still books I ended up reading that were on this list, coincidentally. And I guess that's natural because I love science fiction and fantasy so much. But I'd rather just read books on this list that way, naturally, rather than actually actively trying to read books on this list. Overall, technically, I wasn't able to accomplish this goal, but I also purposely didn't accomplish this goal, so it's okay with me. I love science fiction and fantasy. As I said, they're my favorite genres, but I'm not going to put pressure on myself to read the books that I have to read just because these are my favorite genres. There are lots of science fiction and fantasy books out there that are great and that do not contradict with some of the other things that I consider important when it comes to picking the books that I read. I'm glad that even though I kind of scrapped this goal, I was still able to learn something from it and was still able to grow as a reader from it, just not in a way that I expected to. So were there any reading goals that you abandoned this year? And why did you decide to do that? I'm really curious to find out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you next time. Bye!